Maryland's judiciary's role in providing services to the poor is a part of a larger role. And that role is to provide full and fair access to justice in this state. And to the extent that it is not being provided to those who can't afford legal services, then the court certainly has a responsibility to do whatever it can to make sure that those gaps are filled.
The Legal Services Corporation was established in 1982, and it was a reaction to the change in the presidential administrations.
President Reagan had zero budgeted the National Legal Services Corporation, so the $321 million that had been coming into legal services programs all around the country were very much at risk. The Legal Aid Bureau in Maryland was laying off attorneys, and the poor were facing a crisis in the delivery of legal services. And as a result of the enactment of the Legal Services Corporation bill and the companion IOLTA bill, we were able to put legal services on a sounder footing.
A special memory I have of the early days of IOLTA was the visits that I paid to all the bank executives to try and persuade them to give IOLTA and the Maryland Legal Services Corporation a fair shake with regard to the interest.
The need is there. I'm in court frequently. There's nothing more pathetic than to watch some of these individuals trying to represent themselves when they're not familiar with the law or the legalese, these monies make it available for those individuals to get the legal aid that they need.
The organizations that we've funded show the diversity and the growth and the success of the grants we make to improve access to justice for low-income people throughout the state.
The funding from Maryland Legal Services, which was a huge amount of money for the House of Ruth, it has made a world of difference not only to the House of Ruth, Maryland, but also to literally thousands and thousands of victims in this city and across the state.
MLSC provided the only cash we had that we could spend. And without that funding, MVLS would have died on the spot. So they carried us, and I assume they're still paying, but I've been gone for a number of years.
MVLS really works with clients one-on-one, and we match our clients with a volunteer lawyer. And so over the years there have been a lot of clients that we've helped, and every client is important to us.
Without funding, our organization would never be able to go into the prisons to help the prisoners with their civil legal problems. How can anybody change their life if they are inundated with all these problems once they walk out in the street?
I became director of MDLC in 1983, and at that time the organization was almost totally dependent on a federal formula grant that could be removed at a moment's notice. The problem was getting money to do the things that clients needed. And so most of our funding agencies would provide us with funds to do what they wanted. The big difference with the Maryland Legal Services Corporation was that because of the grant-making process, we were able to get funds to provide the services that the clients needed. And that was a fundamental difference for us.
Without that funding today, our capacity to provide services to Maryland's low-income persons in civil matters would be severely limited. Without that funding today, we would probably be having to close a significant number of offices, making our services even less accessible to people around the state of Maryland. In 1987, the Maryland Legal Services Corporation had been in existence approximately 5 years, and the board felt that it was time for us to do a needs assessment to determine what the needs of our constituents were, how well we were meeting those needs, and to develop an action plan for the future.
Senator Ben Cardin, then Congressman Ben Cardin, was commissioned to come up with a report to improve legal services in the state.
Well, the history of why we had the commission and looked into the legal service issues really started with an acknowledgement that so many people were being denied proper representation. I think we were somewhat surprised to find that as much as 80% of the needs were going unmet as far as proper representation. So I think the major benefit of the Cardin report and recommendations was to say, look, we want the bar to do more. Therefore, we're going to ask lawyers to do more, either directly or providing additional resources. We want the law schools to do more.
That became the blueprint for the expansion of legal services for much of the next 20 years. And the creation of the mandatory IOLTA program in 1989 provided the resources to implement that plan. The idea of using civil filing fees to help supplement IOLTA initially came out of the action plan.
We found it necessary to go to the legislature because we had a succession of 7 years of falling revenues.
The Honor Roll is a program that essentially was to encourage financial institutions to pay favorable rates of return on IOLTA at a time when they were starting to pay lower rates of return generally across the board. The Maryland State Bar Association, as it had been in the past and continues to be, was a very willing and ready partner in this endeavor. And we were faced with a crisis where we were looking at IOLTA revenue that was probably a third lower than it had been the year before.
As enacted in 1998, the filing fee surcharge there was generating about $2.3 million. The bill that we introduced in 2004 in the legislature is generating about $4.5 million. So you can see that's a considerable increase.
When you have these monetary successes, it also comes with a different kind of benefit, one of more hope that we can stay helping people. We see hope in the eyes of the clients we can face by being more confident that we could continue to help them.
Undoubtedly, the major contribution to the success of the Maryland Legal Services Corporation was in getting the right people to do the right job at the right time and in the right way.
That first year, we had 2 full-time and 2 part-time employees. And 25 years later, we have only 4 full-time and 1 part-time employee. I think that speaks to the integrity and commitment of the staff through the years.
I'm just glad they're there and have been for some time, and we look forward to a long and continuing relationship with them as we begin, or as we continue to try to do that which we are required to do.
We are responsible to make sure that everyone has access to our legal system. We have the best legal system in the world, but if you don't have proper representation, you don't have adequate access.
When anyone in Maryland who is unable to afford a lawyer seeks help with a critical legal matter that involves their family, that involves housing, that involves their health, employment, they will be able to access the help that they need. I think we can get there, and we will.